Hi and welcome back as I bring back one of the most popular videos I used to do in 2020. I haven't done one in a long time, and that is a reaction video. So I'm going to be going over Jerome Powell's response to a couple of questions yesterday after the FOMC meeting. And I'm just going to break this apart and tell you the truth behind a lot of the things that he's saying. The misinformation, shall we use that word? We love that word, don't we? So let's go to the screen now then, and let's get this video going.
What is your message to consumers out there who can no longer afford the basics due to this high inflation?
Okay, so she started with a fantastic question there. That really is a great question. I think it's on everyone's mind. What are the Federal Reserve? And again, this doesn't just apply to the Federal Reserve, it can apply to any central bank, your central bank from the country that you're watching as well, especially if you're in the West or, ECB, European Central Bank, Bank of England, etc. So this is a really great question. I think it's what's on everyone's mind.
Well, that is, yes, indeed. I mean, as I just said, I think we do understand very much, and we very much take to heart that it's our obligation to restore price stability. And
so straight away, Jerome Powell is saying there that he takes it to heart and he's tapping his heart. No neuro-linguistic programming going on there at all, of course. But he's saying that we accept responsibility. It's up to us. We've got to restore price stability. So let's see if that is the plan, if that's what they're going to do.
We've had price stability for a very long time and maybe come to take it for granted. But now we see the pain. I'm old enough to remember what very high inflation was like.
Now, it's interesting that he's saying that. Why would you say I'm of that age or that period where I remember what very high inflation was like, if they are also saying at the same time that this inflation is not high, it's manageable, we've got it under control, when really, again, I've mentioned this a lot of times, a lot of other people like Peter Schiff talk about this as well, and that is that they've changed the CPI. So inflation, although they say 7.9, it's closer to 15 to 16% if they were using the old metrics. So I think deep down he obviously knows what's going on here and that the CPI is manipulated. So he's comparing this to when he used to see very, very high levels of inflation. And I also think he's saying this because he knows that we're going to see a lot more. We're going to see a lot more inflation as we move forward. Of course, they're not going to say that. They're going to keep saying that they can manage it and they can handle it. I'm sure he's going to talk about his tools, monetary tools that he's going to use, which he's not going to use. But the key thing that he's not saying here is that we are going to see higher levels of inflation.
We're strongly committed as a committee to not allowing this higher inflation to become entrenched, and to use our tools to bring inflation back down to more normal levels, which our target is 2% inflation.
Okay, so unfortunately I've got to call him out on this, which is a complete lie. They are not committed to controlling inflation. If they were committed to controlling inflation, they would do what we all know to be a good fight against inflation. What is that? It's raising interest rates. And because they're not doing that, even though they're saying that we're going to do it, look, they've been saying this for months and months and months now. If they were going to do it, they'd have done it by now. What I think they're really committed to is keeping the stock market high. Look at this crazy stock market that we've got. Again, this week, stock market is up even more. How does that make sense when every indicator says we're going into a recession and that the economy is extremely weak? Now, of course, he's talking about how strong the economy is. Wow, what a strong economy. And he'll probably mention the labor force in a minute, how strong this is. But actually, it's not true. It's all smoke and mirrors. So if they were really committed to the people, the families out there, to you, to I, to everybody else who's suffering from this hidden stealth tax, which is inflation, i.e. robbing from the people in the future to keep things going in the present day. Well, that was a year, 2 years ago, and look at the pain it's now causing. You see, what I think they're really committed to is keeping their jobs, because why would the president keep him on board if he doesn't do what the president wants him to do? And of course, we have the Democrats in power at the moment. Love or hate them, I have no dog in this fight. But they've just passed another $1.5 trillion bill. They had to take off all the COVID stuff, but they ramped up all the Ukraine things instead. So you haven't even seen that inflation. So that's another $1.5 trillion that is going to hit the economy, pushing up this inflation even more. You see, what they don't seem to get, or I personally think they do get it and they're deliberately manipulating people, is that you can't just create lots and lots and lots of more money, dump it into the economy, and then say, wow, why are these prices going up? I just can't figure it out. And then, of course, you have all the blame game going on. Oh, we blame it on Russia and Ukraine. Oh, we're blaming it on companies being greedy. We're blaming it on workers who are asking for more money. They're asking for higher wages. It's these consumers, these workers. They're to blame. When in actual fact, the blame lies with them. They are the only ones to blame here for all of this inflation.
We will do that. And I just would want people to understand that. But the way we do that is by raising interest rates and by shrinking our balance sheet. And so.
Okay, but they're not raising interest rates. This is the point I'm trying to make here. 25 basis points, and they've talked about doing it 6 or 7 times or whatever they're going to do over the year. I mean, they're still going to be, up to a maximum of 2% on the interest rates. That is not how you fight inflation. If you've got 8% and it could even go higher, let's just say it went to 10%, how is 1 or 2% interest rates going to fight against 10% or 8% inflation? It's a ridiculous stance they're taking here. Obviously, no one's stupid enough to believe that 2% interest rate could fight against 8 or 10% inflation. And if we actually think back to what the chair Paul Volcker did back in, the 70s and the 1980 period, he had to raise rates to 20%. That's what he had to do. Interest rates had to get to 20% to curb the inflation. Now, Jerome Powell's not stupid. He knows this. He's just playing this political game at the moment to try and keep everyone happy and everyone in power and all of this sort of thing. All of his buddies, all the financiers and the bankers and everyone.
At the margin, less supportive of various kinds of economic activity. That will slow the economy while also allowing the labor market to remain very strong. And, the good news is the economy and the labor market are quite strong. And that means the economy, we think, can handle interest rate increases.
So we're starting to see a little bit of doubt in his voice here and using softening words like we think. He's not saying this is a fact. He's saying we think. But the reason the labor market is so strong right now is because there's so much money everywhere. There's so much liquidity. But again, it's not evenly distributed. You haven't got, all of this money in the hands of the poorest or the middle class. This huge amount of wealth is with these big corporations and the top 1%. And then, of course, once they do the rug pull, which they will do eventually, the economy is going to get hit really, really hard. And for them to say that, even if the economy sort of takes a turn, the labor market will still be strong. No. It doesn't work like that. A strong labor market doesn't necessarily mean a strong economy. Usually it does. But in this period of high inflation with lots of extra currency creation, it is just smoke and mirrors. Once the economy starts to get hit, you're going to see employment scarring. And that's when you're going to start seeing a lot of layoffs.
Follow up to that, obviously the Federal Reserve walking this very complicated fine line, trying to avoid a recession. For the consumers out there who are worried about their jobs in a possible recession, what do you say to that?
Well, I say that our intention is to bring inflation back down to 2% while still sustaining a strong labor market.
Okay, so again here, the two things don't marry up. You can't bring inflation down to 2% in these circumstances, in these financial, economical conditions, and still have a strong labor market. It's just not going to work. And
that the economy is very strong. If you look at where forecasts are, people are forecasting growth that's strong within the context of U.S. potential economic output. And we expect that to continue. And to the extent the data come in different, then of course our policy will adapt. But we do believe that our policy is the appropriate one for this forecast, and we believe that we can bring down inflation. We believe that we can do so while sustaining a strong labor market.
Yeah, if you believe that, you will believe anything. And I love it when they say, people or, organizations or institutions have forecast. Who are these people? Who are these organizations? Give the details if someone, or people have forecasted this. Who? I want to know who these people are.
To move supply and demand back in, we don't think we need to do this alone. There will be other factors helping that happen, but we certainly are prepared to use our tools, and we will.
But again, I don't believe they are prepared to use their tools. If they were prepared to use them, they would have used them by now. The highest inflation, and again, this is manipulated numbers, in over 40 years. He's already said it's his job and they're committed to curb inflation. If that's the case, why are they not curbing inflation? Why haven't they said, we're going to put interest rates up to 5%? You've got to look at this. Why would they not do that? And it's because they're protecting the government. They're protecting their buddies, the financiers, the bankers. Unfortunately, government is part of the problem. They want to just keep spending. They don't want to do any cutbacks. They want to just keep increasing their budgets all the time. So funny, news just came out today. The US politicians have just approved something like a 20% increase to their expenses for their staffing costs and all this sort of thing. Why would they spend, 20%? Why would they add 20% if inflation is just 8%? Surely they would just say, let's do an 8% increase to our expenses. No, it's 20%. But then when you've got families and let's say care workers and doctors and nurses and a lot of key worker roles, they don't get pay rises anywhere near that 20%. But yet somehow the politicians seem to be getting this 20% extra on their expenses. It's just nonsense. It's just one rule for the elitists and another rule for the people. I think pretty much everyone knows that there's a recession coming. Even the bond market this week is pricing in a recession. And this could be a really, really bad one. And I don't think this inflation is going to be going away until they actually get these interest rates higher. Now, it's a really difficult situation because they raise rates, they're going to crash the economy. We know this. This is what's going to happen. But if they don't raise rates, we're going to see higher levels of inflation and people's purchasing power and their savings are just going to get wiped out. So there really is only one solution to this problem, and that is to raise these interest rates. Now, it's not a perfect solution. I'll put my hands up to this. If you do this, if you raise these rates, it is going to crash the economy. It is going to crash the stock market, and that's going to result in a lot of lost jobs. But if you don't do it, you're going to see a lot more inflation, and then you're going to see the economy crash as well. So you're going to have it twice as bad if you don't raise these rates now. Sometimes you've just got to take the pain that's due rather than have double or triple the pain later on. Okay, well, thanks for watching today. I've got some more videos on screen now for you to watch. Take care, God bless, and I will see you next time.